Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Be Fit podcast. I am your host, Connor Murphy, here joined with Jason Fernandez. Jason, welcome.
Thank you. I am not your host.
You could be. We could mix it up.
Absolutely.
Co-host.
Co-host.
Jason Fernandez. Jason's a good friend of mine. He is one owner of CrossFit Rife, successful CrossFit affiliate in the Virginia Beach area, senior trainer on CrossFit seminar staff, Navy veteran, fitness guru, anything that you've ever thought about in the fitness realm, this guy's done it. Also, co-owner and host of Best Hour of Their Day podcast, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to.
Go check it out. All we talk about is affiliate ownership, coaching, fitness, some dirty jokes occasionally.
Perfect. And that's kind of like the main piece of this podcast. Because everyone knows my main background is CrossFit, but it's really just kind of small doses of, hey, here's this wonderful thing we call fitness. Here's how we train to get fit, and here's how we can get you to that level, kind of regardless of what you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And where I want to start is we actually just finished the Boston Frogman 5K swim 5K through the Boston Harbor. I would imagine that neither of us trained for it very hard.
Or at all. I literally, somebody was texting me the other day, and they're like, hey, are you ready? And I was like, well, I know how to swim, but I have not been in the water in about 2 years probably in that capacity. I've gotten wet since that I have a shower at my house, but yeah.
But that's where I want to start, is because we have a belief in fitness as an adaptive capacity that lends itself well to any and all contingencies.
Look at you quoting right out of the trainer manual. It's
that
good.
Wasn't a quote. That
It's
was
nope, that is directly out of the trainer manual. It's good.
But so we say we haven't been training for this, but we kind of have. When you peel back all the curtains, it's like, yeah, we've been training for this by doing CrossFit and by training to increase our fitness to have the ability to do these kind of things. Not finish first place in them, but to be able to hop in the water and swim a 5K. A lot of people have been able to hop in a race and run a marathon without extensive training. I think Street Horner, another CrossFit athlete, without training, hopped in and ran a marathon like sub 3 hours and 40 minutes.
That's pretty good. I mean, so I've done, every 5 years I do what I consider a stupid human trick. This year, this was this one. And so I've done a marathon on no training, a century ride on no training, and now I've done a 3-mile swim on no training. And I didn't crush all of them, but that wasn't the point. The point was to have the general capacity to walk out there with no training whatsoever and be able to complete the task. But not do terribly, like to be rather competent, but not necessarily on the far end of the spectrum.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of training programs out there that can give you that, unfortunately. And I get, some people are like, well, I don't want to do that. And it's like, okay. But that's what we think is so special about this program, is that it just makes us capable humans. People think, oh, you want to do CrossFit to compete in the CrossFit Games. And a lot of people think that, yes, and they're not ever going to be there, but it's not a bad thought process to have. But a lot of people don't care about that. It is to be able to not do stupid human tricks every 4 years or every year, but to be able to do anything you want at any point in time and to have a training regimen that aids that.
Yeah. If you don't want to do CrossFit, that's fine. I get it. Like where everybody has their own genre of fitness. But I think if you just understood the principles and the concepts of CrossFit, you would take those and you would kind of back your way into doing something that looked like CrossFit anyway, if you understood what the desired outcome of CrossFit was. I think a lot of people misinterpret CrossFit for the CrossFit Games. Obviously, that's, front and center, ESPN, CBS, all that kind of stuff. But that's not what's going on in the affiliates every single day. My affiliate's been over for 13 years. I don't have anybody that is even close to having a conversation about potentially going to the games within the next 5 years. And that's fine. All of my members are normal people. I've got members that have been there for 11 plus years. The vast majority of them, 99% of them, are just there to live a healthier life.
And that's a lot of our following. Their goal is to live a healthier life. And I think what draws them back from that is that notion or misunderstanding that you do CrossFit to go to the CrossFit Games. But Fern, because you have such a wide knowledge base and background in it, if you're going to talk to our audience, and let's say for right now, if I'm going to generalize it, it is fitness enthusiasts or people who care about movement, working out, staying healthy, being active, looking good. What is like dumb it down, like break it down to what someone should be training for. Like why are we doing that?
So when new members come into CrossFit Rife, we give like probably what is a truncated version of the what is CrossFit combined with the what is fitness lecture. And I just tell everybody there's probably 3 main genres of fitness. So being strong, cardio, long, slow endurance, whatever that looks like for you, and then being flexible. If you wanted to throw a 4th one in there, aesthetics, right? Like look good. Mm-hmm. When we're talking about CrossFit, instead of giving people the 10 general physical skills, I say, wouldn't you want to be good at all 4 of those? And they're like, exactly. And I'm like, that's literally what we do here. So with that, the thing that I love the most about CrossFit is I consider it to be a lever that whatever you want to do, you can use CrossFit as a lever to pull on to go accomplish whatever that task might be. And I think it's multifaceted in the sense that, like today's a good example. And I was having this conversation with Sarah Wilkinson the other day. We bumped into each other in the lobby. Good friend of ours. She swam the swim with us today, and the book that she was referencing was called Comfort Crisis. Mm-hmm. And have you read that book?
Not yet.
I have not, but I'm going to now because she was telling me about it. And a lot of the genesis of it is, had you and I trained specifically for this swim, it wouldn't be the same. Like there wouldn't be the challenge associated with it. Just going in there being like generally physically prepared, as it was like, okay, well, I trained, I was on a swimming program, I was swimming 3 times a week, I'd know my split times, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard, but it's different if you're just relying solely on your general physical capacity to complete a task without actually going down into the rabbit hole on whatever your given task or your goal is or your event is, and just seeing what happens. And there's a tremendous amount that'll happen between the ears there, which I think is really important, specifically in today's day and age.
Yeah, and I think how many people out there, I mean, ask yourself this if you're listening, how many times have you avoided committing to something or doing something because you didn't know if you could do it or not? It's like I don't have the time commitment to be able to, and that's anytime people ask me about the swim, I'm like, come do it. Mm-hmm. Like, well, I don't have the time commitment right now to train so consistently to be able to complete it. And it's like, well, then maybe what we can do is tailor what you're doing for fitness to be able to open all of these doors, to be able to have that lever to pull on, right, to say, hey, I'm not good at pickleball. My friends are all going out to play pickleball. So you have the option of either 1, I'm not going to go do it, or 2, I'm going to rely on my general physical capacity to go out there and 1, probably look like an idiot because I've never swung a paddle at a wiffle ball, but to at least be able to, at least have fun with it.
You'll be competent. And again, I think that's the whole point is like, I don't want to be a specialist in anything. Like I lived that part of my life already. I played college basketball, so I was a specialist in that sport, but now I've got 2 kids. We want to go on vacation. We want to do stuff. My kids are 8 and 3. I'm 41. I'll be 42 this year. When they go to college, I'm not going to be young. I'll still be able to do whatever I need to do with them when they're going to college. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff anymore. And I think that's the whole goal is just feeling prepared to walk out and tackle any endeavor, whatever it might be, whether it's something that you have set your sights on or whether it's something that somebody just presented you on a whim. Like, hey, we're going to go on a 50-mile bike ride this weekend up in the mountains. Do you want to go? And I'm like, sure. Why not? I don't want to be the guy that says I can't do that.
Yeah, I think even what you talked about too with that book with Sarah, it's like if here's your fitness, even with the mental side of things is when if you have the confidence to say, hey, you want to go on a 50-mile bike ride, it's like, cool, you get this kind of confidence, but that's a building block on your overall confidence to where now, if you hadn't done that, then someone says, hey, we're going to do a 12-mile run, or we're going to do this stuff. It's like the more you're able to pull on that CrossFit lever to say, hey, I at least have a general capacity to do this. I can be competent in this. And you keep doing these things. It just increases exponentially overall what you're capable of.
And that's very much what you talk about. And I know you're familiar with this, but what we in CrossFit would describe as like expanding the margins of your experience. Mm-hmm. So an example would be, when I left college athletics, I was pretty competent in the Olympic lifts, because that's pretty normal in the, collegiate strength and conditioning room. I hadn't done a ton of gymnastics, meaning what most gymnasts would call baseline level, gymnastics, but, for the lay person, pretty advanced. But I had a decent background of conditioning. You got to be pretty fit to play college basketball. And when I went into the CrossFit gym the first day, failed miserably. And that's not a bad thing. Understanding that, number one, failure is just part of life. Like, you're not going to be able to avoid it. So you might as well just take a bite and learn to, like eating it. But then from there, you get to find out where your weak points are. And if you find out where your weak points are, you can fix them. And then also the mental clarity and the mental strength that you would develop by continually finding where the failure points are within your fitness, whether it be physically or mentally. I've never swam 3 miles before, full disclosure. Like, I was a rescue swimmer, but you don't swim 3 miles to be a rescue swimmer. 3 miles is not short. It took an hour and 30 minutes, I think. So, was I worried about it? Not really. I know I have the capacity to swim. I know how to swim. It's significantly further than I've ever swam before, but that's just slowing down, but I work out regularly. I own my affiliate, and I know I have the capacity to do that. And there's a lot of comfort in that. And I think that's the whole point of what we're chasing in CrossFit, is like, I just want that comfort to know, I'm like, I don't have to worry about whatever that thing is that's going to present itself.
I see that big as a lot of CrossFitters are doing jiu-jitsu as well. And that's something that I've done for a long time, but and I almost forget this type of stuff because I'm so used to it. I've trained CrossFit for so long that it's like, oh, I'm not afraid to go into something and suck. However, I don't suck as bad as someone who has absolutely zero capacity. So the barrier for me to get over to try something and suck at it is much lower than someone who isn't training constant varied functional movement at high intensity to be able, like, that hurdle is so much higher. So here I am preaching, like, you got to do things you suck at. But I imagine like, if I were to go into a jiu-jitsu gym or a dojo or, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
If I were to go in there and I wouldn't be able to physically hold on to someone's collar, or I wouldn't be able to last a 30-second round before being completely gassed, like, that would be a much different experience. Sure, there's still a lot you can gain, and it's cool to get better from there. But wouldn't you want a better starting point for everywhere you're going to go?
Well, that's the whole purpose of kind of CrossFit and what we're training for, and just apply it to take it outside of the affiliate and use it for whatever your fitness is going to be, and say, well, if I have a baseline level of capacity to do whatever, so I'm moderately strong, I can run, row, bike, swim for distance without, nothing crazy fast, but I can cover the ground. And I've got, a solid grasp of kinesthetic awareness. I know where my body is in space and like a just moderate level of coordination. Well, your hurdle's fairly low, and your trajectory once you choose the next thing is really steep, because I don't have to worry about building a base capacity of athleticism or strength or cardiovascular endurance. I can now worry about the technique portion of that. So that's, and jiu-jitsu is a perfect example of that. You're not going to see a CrossFitter that's going to go into a jiu-jitsu studio and gas out for the most part. No, they're going to get hemmed up and tied up and choked out 12 ways to Tuesday because they don't understand the art of jiu-jitsu. But their conditioning won't be the issue. It'll just be like they don't know where to put their hands or how to lock somebody down. But now I can focus on that. I don't have to worry about, I need to get in shape for this. I need to know, like, I need to shift my hips to the left, or I need to move my foot here, or I need to move my hand here, or put my elbow there. Well, that changes everything with regard to my pursuit of this new endeavor.
It's when you said kinesthetic awareness, I think that's such an important part, again, that I forget about, to where it's like when someone's like, bridge your hips, right? Even just the vernacular of someone being able to sell that to someone, but like, even for some people, if they know what someone wants them to do, the inability to do it because of that kinesthetic awareness piece, which, as we know, comes from practice, accuracy, agility, balance, and coordination. Again, just thought process to where it's like, I know it, but then hearing you say it, you're like, oh man, that's like super, super relevant for someone.
Yeah. And I think let's say you don't want to do CrossFit, that's fine. But like, what I would encourage you to do is, like, again, learn and regularly play new sports. Like, go try another fitness modality. If you're into cycling, go to bar. If you're into bar, go to cycling. If you're into jiu-jitsu, go to CrossFit, and vice versa. And that's what we would encourage everybody to do. Like, it's not about being good at CrossFit. And that's a bit of a misnomer. Like, I don't care if you're good at CrossFit. If you are, congratulations. There's a sport for that. You can go do that. Everybody else, which is everybody listening to this podcast, you're just doing it to be fit, look good naked, and be able to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it.
Simple as that. Slam the microphone down.
Yeah.
Lowering that barrier even more. Let's talk about the people coming into your gym.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about the mental aspect of when you're like, oh, go try this. And it's hard for some people. But let's say someone coming into your gym, unsure, coming from, I'll play a few different scenarios, but let's say this scenario, just no experience in any other discipline of what we call fitness or movement. They're coming into your gym and they're nervous. It's like, what is that conversation like? How are you convincing someone that's like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to do any of this. I'm gonna suck. What does that look like?
For the record, that's the vast majority of people that come into our gym. The vast majority of people come in, don't have training background, might have heard about CrossFit, but they're not there. Not most people, right? So we've been around 13 years. It's a little bit larger gym. So when people are looking for CrossFit in the Virginia Beach area, a lot of them end at our facility. But a huge portion of the people that come in, particularly over the last 2 years, coming in, you can see the depression on their body. Like, they're physically wearing it, shoulders slouched. Like, you can see them, like they're just unhealthy. And a lot of them have that anxiety. And that's, what I think a good CrossFit affiliate should do. A lot of what when you bring somebody into the fold and when somebody comes to check out your facility, I think first impressions are highly underrated. So we don't bring them directly into the facility. We have 2 separate lobbies. We bring them in, we sit them down in the office, and we ask them very candidly, how can I help you? What are you here for? Because everybody who walks into a CrossFit facility is there for a different reason. Every single person. Some people are coping with work stress. Some people are coping with body image issues. Some people are coping with outside relationships. Some people are coping with self-esteem issues. Everybody's using it for something different. And I think just recognizing that people are using this thing, CrossFit, fitness, as an outlet helps you have a better conversation with people when they come in. Whether they want weight loss or they want to play with their grandkids. That's what we need to find out first. Because what I know and what you know is that regardless of what they tell me, I can help them. I just have to understand where their starting point is and where they want to go. If I can get those 2 pieces of information from them, now I can start to tailor that experience so that it's appropriate for them instead of just dousing them in the fire that is intensity inside of a CrossFit gym. That's not appropriate. That shouldn't be happening. And if that is happening in a CrossFit affiliate, I would tell them and I would encourage them to stop doing that. It's not appropriate. There's a time and a place to really ramp up the intensity. And the longer I do this, the more I don't think it's appropriate on the outset. We have time. We should be patient with this. Fitness should be a lifestyle that you should do for forever. And I think being a little bit more careful about how we bring people into the facility is a really, really important task to take on as an affiliate owner or a coach or whatever you're doing. Is like, listen first, then figure out what you're going to do. You spend enough time in the fitness industry, you start to think you know a lot of the answers. And you might have solutions to problems, but that doesn't mean you know the answers because you don't know what the problem is yet. So you have to find out what that is first, and then you can start to guide people down that path. Because, you're, as a fitness coach, I don't care what genre you're in. You're a psychiatrist, a priest, a trainer, a best friend. You're all those things like wrapped into one ball. And you have to recognize that and figure out, okay, what does this person need and how do I get them there?
A little different than how probably you and I did our first CrossFit workout.
100% different than how we did it, and 100% different than how I did it for many years until I matured a little bit and realized, okay, it's not just about working out fast. There is a component of that is incredibly important, but when and how is more important than that. Because if you can never get them to the point where you can push that button, then you didn't help them.
Yeah. I remember at my very first level 1, I think was in 2009 or 2010.
Okay.
And something that stuck with me that I thought was really, really cool. It's on that, but you took it a step further. it was a coach saying, hey, I'm going to bring a client into the gym. We're going to have this discussion. We're going to have this conversation about what is CrossFit. And that was more of like the general, like everyone's put into this bubble and we have like this Onramp program, which what you're saying is you kind of tailor it a little bit. What I thought was super unique about it and that you mentioned, it's like you don't care what their goal is, they're going to get better at it. And one of those trainers said, I want you to write down a goal. I want you to write down your goal of why you're here on a sheet of paper right now. Perfect. Fold it up, put it in your pocket. Don't show it to me. In 6 months, pull that back up. If you're not on your way or in the trajectory to that goal, then I'm not doing my job. And 10 times out of 10, if someone is sticking at an affiliate for 6 months or longer, they're going to be like, yep, this is the exact thing, because it's nothing you or I invented. Like people are like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. You're so smart in this. And it's like, oh, no. Everything that I've learned, the delivery is the only thing that's mine. All of the knowledge, all of the background, it comes from experience, but this is all other people that are so much smarter than me. And even most of the delivery is things that I've seen other trainers and I'm like, that's really good. I like that. I'm taking that.
I'm stealing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's awesome.
I think in today's world, I think it's really important to really focus on, we should do hard things. We should do them regularly. Now, here's the thing about doing hard things. It's relative. The hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done. It's like a Joe Roganism, right? Or the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And recognizing, you and I come from kind of similar backgrounds. What's hard for us, relatively speaking, based on our background, our life experiences, our training over the years, is not the same as, a 23-year-old who wants to look better, or a postpartum, 32-year-old mom who wants to get her self-esteem back because she didn't feel good about how her body looks. What's hard to her is getting to the gym, not coming in and actually doing the workout. Like the hard part for her, it actually precedes the actual work that we're going to be doing inside of the affiliate or the gym or wherever this person is going. And again, I think we have to recognize that, and because there's habits that we have to build back in. Food, fitness, finances, they're all habit-based, right? If you can understand the mechanisms for habits and you can understand what would get in the way of habits, then I can start to create better habits that would replace the bad habits.
So I'm going to take that a step further. Talk almost exclusively and directly to the 32-year-old postpartum mother who wants to get her self-esteem back. She comes into your gym, she sits in the lobby, there may be one listening, there may be someone who says, that's relative to me. What does the conversation look like?
I get this question a lot. So, I mean, what we do for Best Hour. So
Yeah.
we work with a lot of CrossFit affiliates to help them get their gyms in order. And one of the questions we get is, what's your sales script? Like, what do you say to people? And I don't have a sales script. I just ask them questions. And one of the things I always ask a gym owner or a coach, who does the majority of the talking when you're doing a consult, you're sitting down with somebody? And most of the time they'll say, I do. I'm trying to tell them what we do and all the stuff that we're going to help them with and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, you need to flip those roles. It's a given that they have some understanding of what you do because they chose to come to the gym to talk to you. Mm-hmm. So shut up and just ask them what you can do for them. And, I've met with probably thousands of clients at this point, like over the years, having come into the box, and people, and that's what I asked them. I was like, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And the things that people have told me inside of 30 seconds would blow your mind. Like, I mean, I've had everybody say, like, I'm chronically depressed. I'm just breaking out of a divorce. I want to lose 40 pounds. Like, and this is immediately proceeding, hi, my name is Jason. Did you have any trouble finding the place? And then we're immediately into that conversation. So I think it's just asking them a question and saying, like, what can I do for you? And if you're a real professional, if you can't help them, you would tell them that. I'd say, that's not actually what we do. Like, that's outside of my scope of practice. However, I think I've got a different solution for you that I can help you with. And you would hand them off to somebody else, either another gym owner, another type of gym, or a medical professional, or whatever that might be. But you have to find that out. And what we found, particularly over the last 3 to 4 years, is just having those very candid conversations. And by the way, this is not we're not using this maliciously to do an upsell later and be like, oh, you know what you need? You need to do the weight loss challenge that we have. That's not what it's for. It's quite literally to connect with this human being to figure out why they are sitting there. And this is always funny too. And if you're listening to this, this may have been you at some point. I like to take note of when inquiries come in, like what time of day inquiries come into the gym. The timestamps are at very odd times. They're usually like later at night, which begs the question, why would you be sending that at like 11:30, 1 in the morning? Well, you're probably not feeling great about yourself. You're up when you should be asleep. So that starts to kind of change the conversation or how I would approach somebody when they're coming in. I'm like, okay, you definitely sent that late at night. I don't know anything about you, but I'm going to ask you about that. And then we're going to try to get down to brass tacks and figure out like what it is that you're here for. But I think that's important. Like it's so much more than just working out fast or squatting or doing thrusters or what's your deadlift. We can get you there. We can get you all that stuff. That's easy. Show up 3-4 times a week. That'll happen. I got no shortage of soccer moms in my gym that could do a whole lot of pull-ups and just, they're fit, So I think that is important, for that person, which is just recognize it that you're on this journey and just start. And this might look like just going for a walk every day. You don't have to jump right to the gym. Just go for a walk every day. 20 minutes. I started doing that recently just as a stress reliever, so I don't have to talk to anybody. 20-minute walk. Try to do it 3 to 4 times a week and just start there. Maybe you cover a mile. Maybe you don't. Maybe it doesn't matter. Just start walking. And then, I don't know, maybe I'm going to go out in the garage, bring the stroller out there, and I'm just going to do, some sit-ups and some air squats to the best of your ability. Just make up the rep schemes. It doesn't even matter. Newsflash, everybody, there's no magic in any of those rep schemes. It literally doesn't matter. Just start moving. And then from there, you'll start to build a habit, which is like, okay, I'm going to do something today. I'm going to move. And eventually you would graduate your way into, I'm going to try this gym, or maybe I'm going to play around with a little bit of personal training for a little bit and just to see how that goes. But just start doing something. It doesn't even matter what.
When you reference the talking thing, it reminded me, we had Austin on here a few episodes ago. For those of you who are new, Austin Maliolo, as the head of affiliates in North America, really good friend of ours. We worked together on seminar staff. You guys have worked together on staff much longer than him and I have. But that was another thing. It's like you can why someone enough to get the real reason, to where, well, I want this. Why? I'm afraid to do this. Why? And to get down to that point to where, if you're getting that stuff in the first conversation, then you can really get to work instead of, if I'm sitting here and I'm giving the gym pitch, which, as we all know, I like to talk too much. And it's like, here's what we can do. Here's like this. I see like this level, we can make it happen. And someone could be like, okay, great. And they do it. And then 6 months from now, you find out the why. You find out, okay, this is what's really going on. If I would have known that and just and took that time to take a step back and hear or listen to a little bit more, we could have directed this journey a whole lot sharper. So I think that's really good. That's something that I need to definitely remind myself of like asking.
Yeah, just ask, Chuck Carswell, somebody that you and I both know well. He's been on trainer. I think he's done more seminars than anybody in CrossFit, but that's his mantra is ask one more question, and I think that's super important because as a trainer, you kind of get to see people in very vulnerable states. Like if they're not feeling well, either they come in not feeling well, either physically or emotionally or both. And then when you train them, you get to watch them go through these mental battles of being able to not do something and then progress on whatever they're working on, whether it's strength or cardio or just self-image. And it's useful to know because you can understand better. You would have a greater level of empathy for this person when you see them start to talk negatively to themselves. And if you don't understand what their struggle is, you would probably just label that person as weak when that might not be the case. We have our own baggage, and some of us don't have the tools to deal with the baggage. And that's important to understand, is that this person might not have the appropriate set of skills to get over this hurdle alone. And that's where you come in as a coach okay, I need to back this up. I need to back this down a little bit, and we might need to baby step this a little bit, because the most important thing about training is that they show up. It's the number one variable that would lead to somebody's success, not what they do when they're there. Did they show up? That's it.
With, I want to change the conversation from the athlete to the coach, because I think it's what you're giving is such important information as a trainer. And it's like, hey, here's what we're going to say to these people. But let's take a step back to where, either I just got my, I just passed the test for my American Council of Exercise, or the, any of the other, certified strength and conditioning coach, whatever it is. I just took my CrossFit level 1, which again, I'm obviously biased because I think we give way more information on how to start training rather than you're a trainer.
Right.
But, I think one thing now that listeners or people that are starting that, it's like to ask questions to understand that. But it takes a lot of reps to be able to read those types of things and understand. Is there anything, not like hey, here's the magic pill to become a great coach.
Right.
But is there anything that you think is an important thing just to keep it front of mind while developing as a trainer?
Something that I think when you dive into any endeavor and you're going to make this pursuit as a trainer, or I don't know, a computer programmer, whatever, there's a point at which you start to think you know more than you do. So you start to get pretty savvy on the topic and on your chase to be an expert. And then there's a pitfall there, which is you think you know all of the answers. You think you have the solution to everything. You can solve everybody's problem. If you just do this, it'll fix it. And that's just not the case. And so I think as a trainer, just having a little bit of humility and recognizing that you don't know everything and trying to find out what you don't know might be the most beneficial thing in any endeavor. Like, forget fitness, but as a trainer, recognize, if you got out of college or you left your job and you're like, hey, I'm going to train people and I've got, whatever certification would get me in the door to start training. It's fine. You don't know anything, and that's fine. That's how it works. So just recognize that. Ask a lot of questions. Find people who are better than you. Siphon as much knowledge off of the internet and friends and all this other stuff. And your trajectory to improve will change drastically. And I think that's something you've done. That's definitely something I've pursued. Is I have no desire to be the smartest person in the room. Like, I want to be in a room full of people that make me feel like an idiot, because I'm going to take some of that knowledge and I'm going to be able to use it somehow, some way, and I might even know how yet, and that's totally fine. It doesn't matter. The point is, I'm trying to further my knowledge by not thinking that I have all of the answers. And that's a tough pill to swallow, depending on where you're at in your life, like all that kind of stuff. But have a little bit of humility. Know what you don't know. Ask a lot of questions. Always pursue more. Your path will start to iron its way out as you start to do all of that.
Kind of a funny anecdotal story on that. When I started coaching, I did my level 1 when I was still in the Navy, when I was down in San Diego. And then I ended up with Chris Urban opening the affiliate down at CrossFit St. Thomas. And man, did I think I was a great coach, because myself, Chris, Jen, Jared, we were the only people that knew anything about CrossFit. No one had even heard of the word CrossFit when we were down there. And so when people are training, they're getting fitter, their relationships are improving, all of these things are happening. And it's like, man, I'm a pretty dang good coach. Then I came up to Reebok to do the coach's prep course, which was Austin Maliolo, James Hobart, E.C. Sinkowski, and Jen Hunter Marshall.
Okay.
And after day 1, and I think I've referenced this before, after day 1, it's not even like a joke or like a euphemism. Like, I was like, I'm quitting coaching. I am not good at, I don't know anything. And they were just hammering me. I think the delivery might be a little nicer now. But
it's definitely been refined.
That was what I needed, because day 1, I was like, I know everything. I was like combative with, no, this isn't it. And I'm like, well, everything I'm doing is working, so these people are wrong. And like, after day 1 was the most humbled I've been towards an adventure that I thought I knew something. And then day 2, I was like, I'm going to learn today. And it changed the trajectory of my life, to where I went back and it was like, all I wanted to do was learn. All I wanted to do was know more, learn more. And it wasn't just from, the 4 people that I had listed or the CrossFit Journal articles. It was guest athletes that were coming in the gym. It were people that were dropping in. It was from a different coach. And it reminds me of that quote where it is, I think it's Socrates, but it is, smart people learn from anyone and everyone. Moderate people learn from their experiences. Dumb people already have all the answers. And like, I've been all of those bouncing around like a damn fucking Plinko game. But when it comes down to it, it's like the smartest I've ever been is where I'm just going to learn from anyone. And it's the most effective I've ever been as a trainer.
Yeah, which is not shocking because there's so many smart people out there, and that's one of the selfish things about the podcast Best Hour of Their Day is just that was totally selfish in nature. I just wanted to talk to people that I thought were smart and that I liked. But the amount that I've learned in recording whatever we're at, 600 some odd episodes at this point, I couldn't have possibly gained all that information in a 10-year period. If I was just trying to do it on my own, I could not have possibly done it. Like somebody like John Wolf, who's the chief fitness officer at Onnit. We had an hour and 30-minute conversation with him, and I was like, I don't know, 3 times smarter when I left that conversation. and he, and he understands CrossFit, but learning the things and just hearing the way he thinks about things and looking at the way they use and the reasons they use clubs and maces, which, most CrossFitters would balk at, like, why are you doing that? You can't move it fast, or, it's all, you can't quantify it. I'm like, you don't have to quantify everything. You're like, there's value to all of these things. Kettlebells is another one that I've been really kind of nerding out on a lot. Like that's an incredibly useful tool, so, if you are this 32-year-old mom or somebody who's like you can go buy a 25-pound kettlebell for not a lot of money, and you can get a lot of work done with just that single piece of equipment. 25-pound kettlebell and a chair, you could get fit. You could get real fit like that. And there is an immense amount of information on the internet on how to use the kettlebell in a variety of ways. You could nerd on just that piece of equipment for 6 months, and you would still have just scratched the surface. It's crazy.
It's amazing because now you're thinking that's one kettlebell.
It's one kettlebell.
It's not a barbell. It's not a dumbbell. It's not a pull-up rig. It's not a plate, a slam ball, a medicine ball. It's one kettlebell.
It's one kettlebell. And it's so that's where I would, you pick your poison, whatever it's going to be, and just start. People ask me all the time, like, well, what was the first course you took? What was the first thing you studied? And I don't know why. I don't really have an answer for this, but I've never been one to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what's the exact path. I just start moving in that direction, and I'll
start weed whacking.
Yeah, I'll course correct as I get there. I'm not worried about making mistakes, and I think a lot of people fear the setback. And I think what's important to know about that, whether it's fitness, you're gonna have setbacks. I think you just need to be okay with that out of the onset. You might get tweaks, twinges, a pulled hamstring, glute, lower back, whatever. That's part of the process. We don't want you to have that happen, but I would say it's almost unavoidable. Like, you're not going to train with any amount of rigor and not have something happen. So I think just start and you'll figure it out.
When you said like that, I don't know the perfect path. I think of, almost as almost as like a metaphor, as you're in the center spot in tall weeds. You got to get out. And there's the people like you who sit there with their weed whacker or whatever, or their machete, and just start cutting. And you can move in that direction. A maze, and at some point in time, you'll figure out, okay, this is effective. This is more effective. Right. This is the way. This is, you learn all that stuff along the way, as opposed to that person who has 100% precision and accuracy with no actual effort, that's going to stand there the entire time figuring out the very, very best way so that it's the most effective and efficient, and they don't have any setbacks.
I also think it's worth noting that just in fitness in general, there's some common principles that are effective. Constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity would be one. However, as somebody who's trying to start the journey for training, you kind of have to figure out, like, what do you like? What are you good at? What does your body respond to? What doesn't it respond to? And then you can start to craft your plan a little bit better. But the first thing you have to do, it's like giving a cue. So when you and I teach level 2s for CrossFit, coaches have the same problem, just through a different lens, which is we'll ask them to correct a movement. And a lot of times the response will be, I don't know if it's going to work. To which my response is, nobody knows if it's going to work. You have to give the cue. It's a question, right? I'm sending something over to this athlete to see what the response is, to see if it works. And from a training standpoint, you would approach it the same way. I'm going to try this to see if it works, with no romanticism about what the outcome would be. I just got to try it. Do I like it? And if I don't like it, find something else. You don't have to continue doing it. Like if you don't like it and you continue to do it, that's kind of silly. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. It doesn't mean you have to push through things you don't enjoy doing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, I legitimately don't like this style of training. Like this is dumb or it's boring or this is not fun. Then find another one. Like stop, cancel your membership, whatever you're doing, and go find something else. But just start. Like you have to start because there's so many things you have to figure out. Is it me? Do I not like this? Is it the trainer? This trainer sucks. They're boring. Like they have inappropriate jokes, like whatever it's going to be. You have to sort all of that out. You have to give, some people a second chance. You have to give yourself a second chance. I think you just have to start, and most importantly, a lot of what we experience today, I think is like, you have to give yourself some grace. Like you have to give yourself some grace in that journey. It's not always going to go well. It's not always going to be the way you imagined it. You're not going to get every single thing you want out of it all the time, and that's okay.
And I think, I speak for myself, but I think we're on the same page at this, and we talk about it in the CrossFit Level 1, which I think is hilarious, to where it's like, hey, we care more about fitness than CrossFit. Our goal is fitness. Our goal is increase work capacity across broad time and modal domains. In layman's terms, our goal is for you to train so that you have that lever to pull on to do anything you want in the world. Why we are so obsessed with CrossFit is because we found that to be the most effective mechanism that can lead to fitness. So we're sitting here being like, hey, this is what we want to do. But if it's not for you, do something. As long as you are increasing your work capacity across broad time and modal domains, if everyone in the world did that, we would live in a better, healthier, fitter world.
Yeah. It's again, like just remove CrossFit and whatever your training modality is. Just ask yourself a handful of questions. Are you getting stronger? Are you getting faster? Are you more flexible? Can you do things that you couldn't previously do? Just ask yourself those 4 questions. And if you're not, my recommendation is you should change something. You don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't need to throw out your whole training regimen, but you should change something. If those 4 components are not changing your fitness, then it is essentially entirely ineffective. At some point, there will be a plateau as I age out. But listen, if you can pull 225 off the ground when you're 65, and you can do a strict pull-up, you're doing just fine.
Yeah, I'm not worried about you getting stuck on the couch because you can't stand up.
No, you're doing just fine. You're going to be A-okay.
And if you're not performing those movements, you need to start, because without having any capacity isn't going to keep you safe when life demands it from you.
Yeah, you have no option in an emergency or something that's unexpected. You're going to have to. And if you don't, just like we've said in Level 1, is just like that could present potential loss of game, mission, or life, whatever we're talking about, preferably not the last 2. That's definitely not a spot that you want to be in where like, oh, I now can't save myself, or better yet, a loved one, because I physically can't cover the distance or pick them up or whatever it's going to be. You don't want that. You don't want that on your conscience.
And that's when there's like the different levels of what we talk intensity for training, to where we're talking to like brand new people or people trying to gain their confidence back. And there's other people that are fit that are coming. It's like, well, why should I continue to be training fit? Like I'm good where I'm at. It's like, no, you need to be a fucking animal. You need to get to yourself. If you can, you need to be here so that you can increase the chances of winning the game, mission, or, continuing to save your life and someone else's, to where the more capacity, and again, this is so elementary for you and I, the more capacity you have, it's not going to keep going up. You're going to be 90 years old snatching, 275 pounds. But the more you have, the more it takes to go away. And, my dad can overhead squat 75 pounds now.
How old is he?
He's 65.
He's doing just fine.
And at some point, he could do 135 for reps. But now he's at like 75 for reps. He went from the men's RX for a while to now he was at the women's RX for a while. And then it was like the masters 60 plus RX. And it's like, he's not getting fitter, but I can guarantee you he is in the top 1 millionth percentile of healthy humans and capable humans, where he's going to be able to pick up my daughter. When we went down to Costa Rica, he went through every hike with us. He was body surfing in the waves. He was drinking beers with us. It was like, I don't know what that had to do with it, but they had some really good beers. My brother has a brewery down there, Fuego. Check it out. But that means quality of life.
Right. Yeah, and that's all. That's what we're chasing. And again, whatever your fitness genre of choice is, like that's what we should be chasing. And I would challenge everybody. Yes, the statement says form follows function, which is what that means is whatever you want to look like probably is very much associated with being able to do something, right? Professional athletes, pick your professional athlete or somebody that you admire as the extreme end of the spectrum. They don't look like that because they're trying to look like that. They look like that because they're trying to be able to do something. And this is where I have a little beef with the people who kind of poo-poo on the term athlete, which is like, you're not going to call yourself athlete, you're not athletes. And I'm like, it's a state of mind, man. Like, no, they're not professional athletes. They're not paying their bills, exercising or playing games. But that doesn't mean that you can't chase athleticism. Why wouldn't you do that? If you look like you can do pull-ups, it's probably because you are doing pull-ups, and then therefore you look like you can do pull-ups.
Yeah.
So, chase capacity. Like, what do you want to be able to do? Like, I know a lot of women don't want to get bulky. That's not going to happen, number one. But like, hey, I want to get a little bit more tone. Well, you should probably work some upper body strength. You'll probably get more tone. And I've yet to see a woman, that can do strict pull-ups that didn't look pretty fit. That didn't look like what a lot of women are like, oh, she looks really fit. And I'm like, right. Because she's fit,
Yeah.
So
I just immediately thought of like DK Metcalf, who's a receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. Like, he takes his shirt off and they're like, oh man, DK Metcalf trains to look aesthetically pleasing. It's like, no, he trains so he can chase down, a defensive back 80 yards and but that's a beautiful kind of simile in that, to where it's like, you don't train. I mean, some people want to train to look aesthetically good.
There's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to poo-poo on that. Like, it takes a lot of work, but the faster route in many instances is trained to be able to do something, and then you can layer on the aesthetic.
Yeah.
If you want to do biceps and and triceps, like, all day long, I'm all about some bis and tris. Like, it's like everybody wants to see that stuff. I see you, but again, if that's all my training is, we know where we're going to have some deficiencies. So train to be able to do things. And then if you want to throw on the aesthetic stuff, the kind of bodybuilding type training, by all means do that. If you like it, do it. If you like going for long runs, do it. If you like rowing, do it. I don't care. Just continue doing it. Get up every morning, do it in some way, shape, or form.
One of the first episodes, I had this guy, Mike Van Wyck, on here. He did close protection security for one of the most famous artists in the world, and now he's into bodybuilding. And he had been before, college athlete. And it's funny, like, how you say that, because you look at him and you're like, he looks like he could, bench this, deadlift this. And it's like, yeah, it's because he can.
Right.
He can do, like, he looks like that. He doesn't look like someone where I'm like, probably got a sub 5 minute mile. No. And it's like whatever you're going to do, it's like the capability in that stuff is where it's like, well, I want to be able to, do 20 pull-ups, but I don't want to look like I can do 20 pull-ups. It's just like,
well, that's not going to happen. So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
We set a 45-minute clock because we just finished a swim. We have an after party to go to. If you enjoyed listening to Fern, Jason Fernandez, I highly, highly recommend, whether you're in the CrossFit space or not, listening to the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. One of the podcasts that I habitually listen to. Great information. Just like he said, it's not just CrossFit stuff on there. It came from creating the best hour of someone's day, which is usually, if you're doing your job as a trainer, for most people as they go into the gym to feel better about themselves, all the results that we talked about. Incredible podcast. Any Instagram handles you want to tag?
Yeah, Best Hour of Their Day, Instagram. We have a lot of different types of guests, nutrition, mindset. Jimmy Hensel, Mayhem Mindset's going to be on the podcast tomorrow. That'll drop tomorrow. We dabble in all sorts of stuff, but it's all straight down the pipe. Fitness. And if you want to check it out, we'd love to have you on the podcast and as a listener. And if you guys got any questions about anything, feel free to reach out. If you're on the fence about going to a CrossFit affiliate and you want to know some good questions to ask, or you want to find out some information on what would make a good CrossFit affiliate, hit me up, jfern3 on Instagram. But yeah, thanks for having me, dude.
Absolutely. Drop a comment on the YouTube video. It's on, we're on YouTube, Spotify, all that stuff. So if you have questions, I always say this, reach out. We'll get back to you.
100%.
It's as crazy as it sounds. We'll always get back to you. As always, you can follow us at Big Night Fitness On Instagram is where it's kind of the general thing for the BeFit podcast or anywhere else that you're listening to podcast. At Conor T. Murphy on Instagram for me if you have any questions. But just super stoked to be able to have you on here. I learned a lot. So I think that fell in the category of.
I'm glad I beat you in the swim, even though you didn't have fins on.
That's a big piece of it. That's like
it's a lot of it.
As much as
it's all of it.
We could really dig into this, but that's like me wearing a vest during Murph and you not and being like, man, it crushed you.
It's a game changer. I wouldn't actually talk shit about that. No, it was but it was a good event. I was glad we got to do that together, dude.
That was awesome. Now it's time for the after party.
Let's do it.
Thanks, team.
See ya.